would like to ask everyone to please refrain from any outbursts or applause until the conclusion of the debate. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer their questions. Time will be kept by Mr. Will Craig from Louis Cafe. And questions will be presented by our News Talk AM 1270 panel, which consists of Mr. Tommy Young, who has lived in Bartow County for 14 years. He attended Georgia Southern University and served on the Adairsville Council for 7 years, 2 of which was mayor pro tem. He is an active member of Tabernacle Baptist Church and a 2005 graduate of Leadership Bartow. He is currently the general manager of News Talk AM 1270 WYXC. Next is Mr. Louis DeBrow. He has been a citizen of Bartow County for 9 years. He is the husband of Jennifer and the father of 4 sons and 4 daughters, as well as owner of Gatekeeper Data Backup Services. Louis is an active member in the Republican Party, where he currently serves as chairman and committee member for the 11th U.S. Congressional District. We have Brandy Poolnott, an award-winning journalist and mother of 2. She is currently editor of the Cartersville Patch. She is a University of Georgia graduate and former Crime Beat reporter with the Daily Tribune News in Cartersville. We have randomly selected the order in which the candidates will respond to questions, starting with candidate Mike Bearden. He is a lifelong resident of Bartow County, raised in Kingston, Georgia, and he graduated from Cass High School in 1971. He married his wife Shirley the following fall, and the two have 3 children together. He recently retired from Georgia Power after 38 years.
That's Mr. Abernathy.
Mike Abernathy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
He's a good man. That sounds good.
Okay, the 4th candidate to answer questions will be who I just talked about. Mike Bearden, right here on the end, is actually married to Jan and parents to 3 grown children and 7 grandkids. His career included several large engineering, financial, and economic development organizations. He is a Christian, conservative, and Republican in that order, and he hopes to cut waste, balance the budget, and plan wisely for our country's projected growth. Steve Taylor is next. He is a lifelong Bartow County resident. I do have you out of order. I am so sorry. Last time I do paperwork. Tony Tidwell. Just to stop confusion, Tony, will you wave to the crowd for me? Thank you. He was born and raised in Bartow County and is currently employed as the Bartow County building official. Tony and his wife Lisa have 2 daughters, Lindsay and Shelley, who graduated in Bartow County. He has held multiple offices within his field and received the Building Official of the Year Award. Okay, for serious this time, Steve Taylor is a lifelong Bartow County resident and successful business owner. He and his wife Sandy own Taylor's Farm Supply. They reside in Cartersville and attend Tabernacle Baptist Church. He has proven his dedication to economic development and hopes to use his leadership skills and business experience to bring jobs to Bartow County. Did I mess your order up again?
Good.
Okay.
They changed it.
Mike
Abernathy never looked so good.
I bet I don't mess this one up. Tracy Lewis is a lifelong resident of Bartow County. You don't get to go twice.
Good.
Tracy Lewis is a lifelong resident of Bartow County. She is an honor graduate from both Cass High School and Berry College. Currently, Tracy owns Fast Track Delivery and Warehouse. She is an entrepreneur with other family businesses and also was chairwoman for the Cartersville-Bartow County Chamber of Commerce in 2004, which was only the 2nd woman in the Chamber's history. And now I'm going to hand it off to Tommy Young so he can mess something up.
Thank you. I'm glad you remember me. Good evening, everybody. We appreciate you being here, and for all of those that are listening on the radio and over the internet, that we are streaming live on News Talk AM 1270 WYXC. Also want to thank Cartersville Uncut for being here as well and covering this, the Daily Tribune, and the other media. If I've missed anybody, please forgive me, but that's who I see immediately. But thank y'all for covering this most important event. I was mentioning last night on the radio how key and how instrumental and important these debates are, because since there is no Democratic opponent, July 31st is pretty much everybody's under the consensus that there will be a runoff, and then you have 3 weeks, I believe, candidates, whoever the two of you may be, to prepare for the final vote. And at that point, we are going to have a new commissioner take office in January. So y'all are almost halfway there on the debates. Now, I know WVHF is having a debate sometime, and then you have 2 with the GOP. Or I guess y'all are involved in one of them. So this is you're halfway home as of tonight. But again, thank you all for being here. To move on to the questions. First question, I believe the pecking order is candidate Bearden. Is that correct?
If you want me to be bearded, I'll take the first one. Yes.
Okay. Are we starting at that?
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Okay, I want to make sure. All right, public safety. All right. With the alarming rate of drugs, gangs, and other crimes increasing in Bartow, what will be your role in working with the sheriff to make Bartow a safer community?
Our children are under attack from all areas. They have been for decades, it seems, but it's accelerated, and the serious disease and afflictions of drugs has caught our county. No, we're not part of Atlanta. We don't want to be part of Atlanta, but indeed, it's in every home, it seems. It's in every family. It's probably the most serious issue facing our society. It's a reflection of our society, though, and the commissioner is the titular lead of your county. Basically, the commissioner is the CEO of now 105,000 population county, a very complex operation, a very large operation. What our children need most are role models through their families. What they need beyond that are mentors and peer relationships and pressures that keep them from straying or reduces the odds that they would stray. County government can't get involved in the lives of families. Families are the most important. The structure of the family is the most important institution in our society in preserving our children. But as commissioner, if I'm honored by being commissioner, I'd have the responsibility to set the budget. The sheriff administers daily operations. The commissioner has no role in deciding how many cops are on the beat, where they go, how many vehicles are out there. But the budget is the huge responsibility, the most important responsibility that there is. We must do everything we can to ensure that the sheriff has all the resources that are necessary to combat that issue.
Candidate Tidwell.
Yes. I'd be more than open to discuss that with Sheriff Millsap or whoever the sheriff is at that time. As far as what kind of needs they feel like they have, if there's some way that there's some issues with the budget where we could, and everybody knows our budget's not good right now, but we may have to trade off with something else to provide whatever tools he needs to help with that. I know from the building inspection end of it, we've already tried to do what we can with these abandoned buildings, have calls all the time where they say, you know, they've been abandoned, doors open, kids going in and out, using for drug houses, whatever, so we do what we can to get those closed up. But other than that, I would be very open to hear the suggestions, recommendations from the sheriff on how to be the best way to handle that.
Candidate Taylor.
Of course, our children are our future, and I would support the sheriff's department with all available revenues, and everyone knows that I think the sheriff's budget's already about 20% of all the county budget, 19 million out of 104 million. So the sheriff's department will need more funds in the future. Hopefully, the revenues will increase. But if you think about our children, we spend $1.1 million a year on juvenile court. We spend $2 million on parks and recreation. Just suppose that if we do increase funding, and we would have to call on more volunteers because I think the rec department is maxed out on adult volunteers helping these kids. But if we just suppose we spent more on recreation and got some of these borderline children involved in recreation, I think that would probably be a lot of money better spent than than pumping up the sheriff's department, even though they need the funding too. But I'm thinking with these younger kids, get them involved early and call on more volunteers to help out. I think that's more of the answer than waiting until they get in trouble.
Candidate Abernathy.
Ethical leadership, bringing folks in, bringing your leadership in. Everybody in the county needs to be leading. And not just for the children, but if you take care of the parents and you're coming down. We got great drug courts in town. We got the opportunity to see young men and women get off drugs, stay off drugs for 18 months. We need to utilize them. As a county commissioner, when I step in, I think that support will be there for those people. And to see them, see the commissioner over in that court, helping them get off drugs for 18 months. If you can help the parents, you can help the children, be a leader, be a leadership role, make sure we do that for the people, and help Clark get this drugs out of the system, out of the town. We know where the drugs are. We go shut them down tomorrow if we wanted to, but we can't shut them all down. I want to tell you something. They're there, and everybody in Bartow County knows where the drugs are at. We need to get the money behind it. We need to go shut them down, get them out of town, and let them roll over to Polk County.
Candidate Lewis.
Thank you, Tommy. That's a great question. Of course, I would like to play a huge role in working with the sheriff. He does control about 20 million. Of course, the commissioner sets the budget, but the sheriff's department currently is 19 million, a little over 19 million out of a $62 million budget. So it's 1/3 of our budget is for our safety. But when he tells me that there's only 200 road deputies on the road to protect my family out of 100,000 of Bartow County residents, that's not enough for me. So we need to do what we can do to get him the money that he needs. And so our deputies can be making the same thing that other deputies make going to Cobb or Cherokee. So I'd like to be a huge role in a team process, and if I see ways that the sheriff could improve upon the services or where he could save us some money and some services that they're already being provided, then I would like to dive into the details, because the devil's in the details, and look at his budget and see where we can improve it upon, because safety is our #1 priority.
The Florida Times last year quoted Association of County Commissioners of Georgia spokeswoman Beth Brown as saying, after several years of declining revenues as a result of falling tax digests, counties are certainly feeling the impact. Many are running out of options and are making more cuts to programs and services, and in some cases raising the millage rate. Here's the question. Bartow County has enacted and continued employee furloughs and other budget cuts, then later offered early retirement incentives to further reduce expenses. How would you handle further reductions in revenue? And we'll start with candidate Tidwell.
Okay. I think that's probably the most pressing issue right now that the county is facing. We have cut back a lot on our employees. Could more be cut back? It depends on what level of service you, the citizen, are willing to take on that. I would hope that to be able to get in there, and I think everybody knows the current county administrator is leaving. We'll be looking at finding another county administrator to be able to sit down, go back over these facts and figures that are available, see if there are any places that may have been overlooked. I know the current administration has tried to do the best they could to try to see are there areas where we could cut the budget without hurting services. So there's several different options out there. It's just one of those things that I don't think anybody can sit up here and actually say what they do till they're in that position. They get the input from the citizens to see what they're willing to take. I don't think there's very few people I think could handle a tax increase. But I've had several people come up and tell me, you know, you don't have to raise taxes. And other people saying, I don't see how you can raise taxes. So it's going to depend on what level of service the people are actually wanting and those other areas where we might be able to pick up some added revenue. There might be some services that we could increase some fees on for the users that use those. Thank you.
Candidate Taylor.
You know, if revenues don't increase with the housing market the way it is, the ad valorem tax base is down about 40%, I think, from the very high. About 5 years ago, the county employed 900 employees. Now we're down to 700 employees. And as Tony just said, if we shrink employment anymore, we're going to give up something. It's got to the point now, they're at a critical mass with employees. So what do? We gotta be willing to give up some services if we shrink any more employment. I know a lot of people say you have to trim the fat, but I think the fat's been trimmed, and I'm guilty of saying things like that myself. But now that I've looked at it and I've dove in and looked at the numbers, we're going to start doing without some services if we cut any more employees, as Tony said. So I think increasing fees, like at maybe the landfill or some of the other fees, would be the only answer, other than, heaven forbid, raise taxes. And I'm not saying I'll never raise taxes, but that'll be the last resort if I'm commissioner.
Candidate Abernathy.
That's exactly one of the questions that I was going to ask to the group here today. You know, one of the things we've got to do is we've got to look at that budget closely. We can just take a few examples. We're going to have to go out and we're going to talk to people about the limitations that we've been placed under as a government. Any business with too many limitations on it cannot function as a business because it's costly to do that. You talk to the road department, when you got to have 6 men to take a shovel and dig a ditch because you got to have 2 road signs on each end, you got to have walkers on each end. Somebody needs to go back to the state and say, this is too many people to do one little job. We're going to have to cut limitations on government. We're going to have to take some of those limitations off. Government's too big, too many regulations on us. We can save money, and we can save money in this budget if we could reduce some of the limitations that have been placed on us and the expectations. EPA, all the different groups that are out here pushing on us. Those may be federal and state regulations, but I believe we can reduce some of those regulations, and by that we can save some money. It's not always about tax money, it's about how you look at the business and say, if I could do away with this and this, and you don't have these constraints on me, and we can do this business cheaper, and we can do it more efficiently. And I believe that's the answer to that budget crunch right now. We're going to have to do business more efficiently, and if people want that message taken back, we got to take it back to Atlanta. We got to get some answers. We got to get some of this off us so we can run this business better.
Candidate Lewis.
With decreasing revenues, it would be a challenge to not raise the millage rate, but that is the last resort to me. Employee furloughs are basically a positive alternative to layoffs. And I know that Bartow County employees have been on furloughs for 3 or 4 years now, and it's affecting their lives. Some of them are having to go out and get second jobs, part-time jobs. And it's also affecting the people that are the best performers, the best workers in the county, as opposed to some who may not be as qualified. So I think that needs to be something that needs to be looked at and reviewed and done away with, because employee furloughs, like I said, are just an alternative to layoffs. And yes, they have laid off almost 200 and people taking early retirements over the past few years. But this is something we've got to look at, because it also causes a negative attitude and apathy with the employees when they know that they've got to go work one weekend out of the month to be away from their kids because they gave up that one day a month. So I think it's something when, as commissioner, when I am there and dive into the details of the budget, that I can help fix that problem without any raised revenues, raised taxes, or increasing the millage rate.
Candidate Bearden.
If Commissioner Bearden is there, taxes will go down. That's the second most important issue facing us. The most important issue is jobs growth. You need someone experienced to make these hard decisions. It doesn't matter which one of us is going to be there next year. It's going to be a tough year, very tough year. Job growth lowers taxes. Balanced growth planning lowers taxes. Business, fiscal, hard management, making tough decisions in county government lowers taxes. Stronger families keeps kids out of the judicial system. That lowers taxes. There's no question in my mind that my 40 years of experience, when applied to my county, our county, that we all love, that we'll find ways for taxes to come down. That's my pledge.
Okay, and we have a follow-up to that question. If revenues continue to decline, would you favor privatization in some departments and/or employee layoffs to avoid raising the millage rate? And Candidate Temple. Oh, Candidate Taylor.
I would look at privatization in certain departments. You know, some departments you can privatize, and there's some departments that absolutely cannot be privatized. Government is in that way not like private business. In my business, if there's a loss somewhere in my business, I'm going to correct it as soon as possible, and I'm going to make it profitable, or I'll stop doing business or quit selling that product, whatever it takes. But as a government, there's certain things and services that we have to provide that just cannot be privatized. And some of those is like the court system, for instance. There's just no way that you can privatize the court system. I know out west it's been tried around Arizona and whatever, but it really has been done with bad results. And there's a few departments that we probably could privatize, but before I would do that, I would try to look at it and see how we could make it more profitable. And but it's an option that's going to be out there. There's just no way that you'd be very irresponsible if you didn't look at privatizing a few of these departments to save the county. You're going to do whatever you have to do.
Candidate Abernathy.
I'm just like Steve on this issue. There's some things I think we can privatize, some we can't. Our MC group with the emergency management that we've got going in our ambulance system, you know, we got 12 ambulances. If we decide we want to do it, I might could make myself look real good to save $2 million or so in the first year or two and say I really saved something. But when Redmond decides they don't want to work with us anymore and they're losing money like we are, then they turn around and we wind up with these people with no ambulance service for Bartow County. Right now they're picking up 147 calls a month, 12,000 calls a year. These folks are really doing us a good job, but there's got to be places. You're just going to look at every area and see where you can privatize that. And the ones that you can't, you put an L on, and if we lose two, that's a non-profit section right there, that one section. And you don't want to do anything with it. You want to leave that alone as best you can. Maybe we could find ways to make it more money profitable and make that money center come to us.
Candidate Lewis.
Yes, I would be in favor of some areas once I get to dive into the budget, and right now I'm trying to get elected, so I haven't dove into the budget that much, but I spoke with Clarence months ago and about a couple of areas that I think that are more of a burden to us as taxpayers and as a government to provide the services than they are a benefit. And one of them is the EMS, because it is a drain on our budget. And to be able to make the tough decision and decide when it's time to exit a business that the government provides, a service that it provides. Frank Moore did that years ago. If you remember, as a child, that we had the Sam Howell Hospital, the old hospital across from Wendy's. It's a senior center now, and it was losing in the budget. So he privatized it, he sold it, and now we have a hospital in our community that is privately owned, and thank goodness they're there. I mean, they have helped my family out many times. So yes, there are definitely areas, and when you get in there and look at the budget and listen to your employees and build the right team and have the right people giving you advice, then that's when you can make that decision and see what areas do need to be privatized, because it is too heavy of a burden for us citizens, for the taxpayers.
Candidate Bearden.
Well, of course, in my experience, I've run organizations larger than Bartow County's budget. I have responsibilities for a budget 5 times the size of Bartow County. I won't sit here and tell you that I know where the answers are in terms of specific reliefs, because I've learned from looking backwards that until you get into a job, you really don't know what's there. But everything's in play. We've got folks hurting all over the county. We've got a great set of county employees, but there's no doubt in my mind that we have some services that are needed during a time when the citizens are suffering. The commissioner, moving forward, needs to be the advocate for the taxpayers. If I'm elected, my allegiance will be the hardworking taxpayers of the county, and what we've got to do is make tough decisions. And sometimes that will not be fun, but we need to be very careful about the fiscal stewardship of our county. If we allow our county to get into serious financial straits, this will seem like a cakewalk what we're looking at the next year. We can't afford to do that. Everything's in place. Zero-based budgeting from the ground floor up, full assessment of the entire set of organizations and services, with the Citizens Advisory Panel helping me decide to look through those tough issues to ensure that we see the big picture. But I'm going to roll my sleeves up from day one, and we're going to focus on ensuring that we get the county on a very sound footing, as it has been in the past during good growth times, through these troubled times.
Candidate Tidwell.
The county's budget is a lot different than what you'd have in most private businesses. We are a service-oriented budget. There's a lot of things that the county provides that, I mean, we're going to lose money on. It's not that we're going to break even. That's, you know, if it wasn't that way, we wouldn't have taxes at all. So there are areas, though, that, and I would never say, no, we're not going to privatize any until you get in there and look at it again. And as already been mentioned, there are some areas that maybe we could privatize, but I think we better look at it close, find out areas that have privatized, maybe those areas in the past, see what, you know, how it worked out for them. I've heard some horror tales from some of the things been mentioned tonight on some areas that are privatized, and definitely don't want to go there. You don't want to reinvent the wheel, so you check with other areas and see how it's worked for them. It might be something we can do, but there again, until we get in there and look at everything we've got, keep this in mind. Anytime you privatize something, the county loses a certain amount of control over it. As long as it's run by the county, you expect that the county employees that are running that service are going to take care of the people. They're our home people. It's not, there again, it's not a profit-driven situation, so they're more likely to give better care to the citizens they're serving. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to welcome all the candidates and say thank you for being here, and to just say to all of you here assembled and out there in Bartow County how tickled I am to be living in a county where we don't have a single Democrat running for commissioner. Prior to the passage of Obamacare, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that we had to pass the bill to see what was in it. Once the bill passed, we saw that it was a monstrosity that worsened health care delivery and doubled the projected cost in only 2 years. Today, a hot button topic is the upcoming vote on the T-SPLOST bill. The question, do you support the Transportation Investment Act? And if so, have you read the text of the bill to find what hidden provisions it may contain, which might make us regret passing it later? And we will start with Mr. Abernathy.
I've looked at this T-SPLOST bill and looked at it and looked at it. I've looked at everybody from the Chamber of Commerce viewpoint to the state, Jeff Lewis's representation, Tracy, and I've looked at everything I can look at. And I know you're not going to get this out in 90 seconds, but as far as the T-SPLOST, it would be great if we could pay for the highway, $10 million tax, 10-year tax, and a 1 penny tax, but the $19 billion that's going to bring in, if we, in our district, there's 860,000 voters in this Region 1 that is going to be represented. Bartow County will be a part of that with those 15 counties, and they may vote this in whether we do or not. And if they do, according to what I can gather, that tax revenue for that 15 Peak County seat right there, that Region 1, is going to hold that money, and it's not going to be spread out all over the state. We're not going to be paying. That was my radical move. I was not going to pay for MARTA if I could avoid it. I would have toted signs up and down the highway. But I think that what we see now is a $1.4 billion for Bartow County that we could assess, bringing it in the county. I'm still in the learning mode for this, and I'm leaving myself open here. We're going to face this on July 31st. We got to know and we got to vote, and I'm trying to educate myself as much as I can that we need to get these roads finished up. We got to get them, but I don't want roads hanging out there half done. I want complete funded projects that are going to be substantial. We can get them done. This could be a good program.
You're out of time.
No way to answer.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes, thanks, Liz. The T-SPLOST, you hit it right. It is a hot button issue. And I'm still in the middle of research as far as which way I'm going to do, and I encourage all of you to do the same. They have given it back to the citizens for us to vote on. And you know, the timing, no, it's not perfect. But do we need the roads? Yes. I am in logistics. I have been doing fast track delivery for 24 years. And I can tell you from hearing drivers, truck drivers, being a dispatcher that I've been and making those decisions, it is our roads in Bartow County and the whole state of Georgia are some of the worst in the whole nation. And we need to finish these roads. So if this T-SPLOST does not pass, You look at, well, what's the other option? It's going to be a harder job for whoever the next commissioner is to come up with the roads, or either we're going to have to deal with what we have and drive on the roads that we have and the ones that are not completed. So I encourage each of you to look up and research. I got a couple of websites for you. There's www.t-splice.com is a positive. And then there's connectgeorgia2012.com. They're all for it. And then this Saturday, there is a forum for some people the Tea Party and the GOP has put together that are not for it. So as soon as I make up my mind on this, I will be transparent and make that known. But right now, I am still in the research stages of T-Splice and whether I support it or not. I'm about 50-50.
Mr. Beard.
I finished my research and I'll be voting no. I'm the only civil engineer up here. I started my career professionally with the Highway Department in 1967. My last job was Senior Vice President of the 15th largest architectural engineering company in the country. I made a lot of living off building roads. If I'm elected commissioner, we'll take a look at this issue. We'll provide the creation of a project management office in the office of commissioner, and we'll take advantage of my deep experience for my home county to build these needs that we have, and we do have needs, at a later time when there's not a recession. Now is not the time to raise taxes. We'll save 25 to 30%. I can take you shirt and sleeve to projects that I was intimately involved in other counties, where when a county did the work, they did it 30% less than the GDOT did, and they did it 60% quicker. There's no doubt in my mind, if we turn our control over to a regional government mechanism, that we have eroded further what's harming our country, whereby we're not having local governance. We're a large county. We're 105,000 people. There's no reason for us to link our future to other folks who don't have our interests. Bartow County's got a very promising future. We're going to bring jobs here, and those jobs will bring growth. So we will have to do some corrective measures, but not this way. No to T-Splice.
Mr. Thibault.
I have mixed feelings on this T-Splice also. I've been doing a lot of research on it. For those that are not familiar with it, basically Georgia is divided up into regions. And we're in the northwest Georgia regions, which is made up of 15 counties. And it's basically north of Cobb County, on up through northwest Georgia. It's kind of like they got us over a barrel. If we don't pass it, then the state's not going to allow these funds that are needed in Bartow County that might help the industry. But there again, you go around and say that I want to vote another penny sales tax on myself. You can say, well, you know, if we do that, then maybe we'll get more of the industry, and maybe we can lower the taxes when we get the tax base back up. Georgia is about 47th, 48th, I think, as far as the amount of money we spend on our roads compared to the other states. And that's what they're saying. It's Tennessee, you know, Alabama, the other states around us are going to be able to get this industry more so than we will. Out of that 1% sales tax that they're talking about, 75% will go toward these roads that benefit the region as a whole. 25% of that amount will come back to Bartow County to be able to use on our roads. So, you know, that's something to think about there. I just advise everybody to really pay attention to what this is about and just vote your heart on it on July 31st. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
As county commissioner, you can't take a position on T-Splice. It's voted on by the people, and the commissioner acts accordingly after the vote. The commissioner never takes a position on any splash. But a few points. Bartow County gets 25% of the total revenue in the 15-county area. We're going to pay in, Bartow, Floyd, and Paulding is going to pay in about half the sales tax in those 15 counties. That's half the population lives in those 3 counties. We're going to get 25% back in this county. But as elected officials, you really, as an elected commissioner especially, we can't take it, the commissioner cannot, he's not allowed to take a position promoting a splash tax of any kind. And that's the position I would take. And the good thing about the T-Splash is it's voted on by the people. If the public wants it, by golly, we're going to do it, and we're going to take that money and bring jobs in here with these new roads. Now, I'm not a civil engineer, but I know that roads can create jobs. Education is number one, but the roads is right behind education as far as bringing jobs in here.
Thank you. Before we get to the next question, Tracy beat me to the shameless plug. There is a forum this Saturday right here in this room, 10 a.m. to discuss this very topic put on by Gail Engelhardt and the Bartow Tea Party and the Bartow Republican Party. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic, please join us.
Lewis, in the Clarence Brown.
Clarence Brown said it. That's okay. We're having Jeff Lewis, one of the candidates just said Jeff Lewis is our DOT representative in the area. Also have State Senator Barry Loudermilk. I have them lined up to be on News Talk AM 1270 WYXC in the upcoming weeks. We will have them on for a couple hours during our Live Drive at 5 program from 5 to 7. So you may want to stay tuned to that. For those of you on Facebook, you will post it there. But it ought to be very, very interesting and stimulating, needless to say, and very informative. Moving along to the next question, this is an economic development question, candidates. The current statistics I'm getting ready to give you are from the 2010 U.S. Census. The median household income in Bartow County through the years 2006 and 2010 is $49,216. In Paulding, $62,348. In Cobb, $65,522. And Cherokee, $66,320. The University of Oklahoma State Economic Development Department has estimated for every payroll dollar that is created, that dollar circulates in the community 7 times before it leaves. As Commissioner, what would be your plan to increase this level of per home income, which would significantly help increase the county tax base and create jobs? And I believe we are starting with Ms. Lewis.
Thank you, Tommy. That is my #1 priority. Economic development is my highest priority, which is jobs, jobs, jobs. Because I believe that equals joy, joy, joy when you get you a paycheck. Now, what I found out knocking on doors is a lot of people that aren't working or cannot find work, there's a lot of negative attitude and apathy. So it makes me wonder, those numbers are very alarming of how off we are with our surrounding counties. So maybe we need to work with the Department of Labor and see exactly all those that are unemployed who actually wants to be employed. But there are all type of jobs that we need to get back into this county. I'm for the blue collar, the white collar, and everything in between. And we have people that have skill sets for those certain jobs. So yes, we need to increase our median household income compared to the other counties that you have mentioned. And yes, that will be a high priority of mine. And I will want to be more involved in economic development and in getting these jobs to Bartow County than any commissioner that you have ever seen, not only in the state of Georgia, but in the nation. I have no problem with going out to anywhere, New Jersey, Utah, China, wherever I need to go, to talk a business or industry into coming to Bartow County and locating here so our people can have the jobs that we so need. And it will, every dollar, as you said, turns over 7 times. So think about the ripple effect of how it will affect our Bartow County.
Candidate Beard.
This county's come a long way. Those numbers are frightening and scary, but I can remember what it was like when I was raised in Castleton, when my mom was raised here in Adairsville. This is the reason that I'm running. I don't talk about jobs. I've done it. My job was as an advisor to Fortune 500 companies moving plants across this country. I can rattle off 20 different clients that I want you to recognize. I want to put my suit back on, and I want to go to the Midwest. I know what they need. I know what they're looking for. I don't want to sit here and wait on them to come to Bartow County to decide whether or not we would accept them. That's not the way you sell. I want to go sell Bartow County, which has the best story in this country, for my clients. I want to bring those high-paying jobs here. The primary target is the subcomponent assembly segment of the automobile industry. They're looking to move south. I've got friends here who are part of my advisory council who have come from Ohio that says, right on, Mike. We need to sell Bartow County like it has not done before. I'm not saying that to get a job. I'm not running for a job. I'm running because this is a give-back thing based on my experience. I can't think of anything better in my life right now than to serve my county by taking advantage of my career and bring jobs to Bartow County that otherwise won't even know we're here.
Candidate Tidwell.
That is a big difference, you know, when you compare Cobb County and Cherokee County and Palmer County. You also have to realize that those counties are more in direct contact with Cobb. Basically everybody knows, the further you get closer to Atlanta, normally your pay scales are higher, but that doesn't mean that we can't do anything here. I do feel like once we start coming out of this recession type period, just due to our access to 75 to the lake, we have a lot of amenities to offer people wanting to locate here. We do have that 700-acre industrial park at the Cass White exit. This SPLOST that everybody just voted to extend, out of that, we're looking at trying to get that paid off, which will give us a bargaining tool to get a good company in. Those who were in the last, that maybe attended the last debate, we hit on that a little bit. But it gives you a bargaining tool on being able to provide property to somebody. We'll say a company comes in here that'll have some of those $20 an hour jobs, you know, something that would really help boost our median income up to allow these people to buy more cars, buy more houses in Bartow County. Talk about houses. There's a builder I talked to 4 years ago, I guess, and he just sat down one night, he couldn't sleep. He came up with a list of 400 people that worked on that house. My time's about up, but you can imagine with the housing industry dropping off, those 400 people working on these houses, that does a lot to affect our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Taylor.
You know, I think it's a shame that our county is surrounded by counties that has a household income of $12,000 to $15,000 more than Bartow County. And those jobs are not people that work harder. Actually, the lower paying jobs, the lower the paying the job is, the harder you actually work. People that make minimum wage will never walk in my doors of my business and buy any products because they're spending all their money going to the grocery store and buying food for their families. We don't need just jobs anymore. The South has always been known as low taxes and low paying jobs. Let's take our company to the South because labor's cheap and the taxes is cheap. Let's keep the taxes low, but let's get jobs, quality of life jobs. Jobs that people can not only feed their families, but buy cars and homes, and that will help our housing problem far more than anything else we can do. It'll be the greatest stimulus in our community. If we can land a company like an auto company or big parts company, some white collar jobs, that's the greatest stimulus for our community. We don't need the government to give us anything. We just need to put to work our resources, and we've got some potential great property in the industrial park that's just waiting on a good tenant, and it's going to happen, and it will happen soon.
Thank you, Candidate Abernathy.
As we look on Bartow County, we're looking at Polk County, Gordon County, and Floyd County making less than Bartow County, and everybody else makes more than Bartow County. So as we look at that, we've got 49,267 people in the workforce in Bartow County. How do we motivate, how do we roll it 7 times? How do we cause indirect funding? How do we increase the money? We're going to have to use that almost, and the fact that we are a low income, a low labor cost, and we can use that to draw more labor in here, use our resources, and then we still have 4,561 people unemployed in Bartow County. But how am I going to take this and increase the salaries? How are we going to take it? We're going to take our resources. We're going to do just like everybody. Everybody's on the same sheet. We've got to increase this. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at it and say, okay, we're going to market the fact that we are low income. Instead of it being a negative, let's make it a positive. Bring your business here. Bring the business in when it gets here. We're looking at different tiers of salary ranges. You're going to have management. You're going to have laborers. You're going to have the different people of education levels doing the work. And we don't want people unemployed. We don't want 4,561 employees, people sitting out there not working. And that's probably just the people that are actively seeking employment that are on the records. And we may be double that amount of people that have just given up, as Tracy said a minute ago. They have become so negative they don't think they can get anywhere. So we've got to get them to work.
Thank you,
Move it.
Candidate Abernathy.
Going back to the county budget, Cuts have also affected sheriff, fire, and EMS operations, including the loss of overtime and holiday pay for some employees. As Commissioner, how highly would you prioritize public safety? And we'll start with candidate Bearden.
The first and most important function of government at all levels is to protect our freedom. At our local level, and where it relates to what we're speaking tonight, the judicial and the law enforcement agents, is job one. That's in large part why our Constitution sets it up such that the sheriff is a publicly elected official. Even though you're talking to commissioners here tonight, or we're all want to be commissioners, that sets the budget. There's nothing more important than fundamental safety and protection of that. We can't compromise that, but these are tough times. I don't know the specific answers on what level of budgets, but I was financial controller for a $10 billion program for a long time. And I'm eager to roll my sleeves up. I'm eager to learn from the ground floor up the ins and outs of every part of the budget, especially the law enforcement side. But again, job one is law enforcement. Everything else rolls from that. Without protecting our freedom and safety and the comfort of our home, nothing else really matters. So we can't allow that to be eroded. But that's not an easy decision to say, and I'm not going to pander for votes here and say what I'm going to do one way or the other. Again, I'm not running for a job. I'm running as a public service motion. But you can rest assured that if I'm there, your interest, the citizens' interest, will be best served first.
Candidate Tidwell.
Well, unfortunately, whenever, times get like they are now, there are certain departments that get busier, such as the Sheriff's Department, the court systems. There's people breaking in, stealing material, trying to sell it. I don't know how much of it's for that drugs we were talking about, or how much is for putting food on the table. So anyway, it keeps that department busier than what they were during the good times. I think it's been mentioned about the morale of the people. Yes, it'd be good to try to find that money to get there, to do away with some of these unpaid holidays or things like that, but we got to find it. And that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. If we give more money here, we've got to take more money here, we've got to raise taxes or something. You can't, like I say, you've either got to lower the water or raise the bridge. You can't do them both. So, it's an area that needs to be looked at. With drugs, it seems like it is getting worse, and I know that puts a bigger toll on the Sheriff's Department. So, yeah, I'd love to look at it closer, and that's just something we have to do once you get in there. Thank you.
Candidate Taylor.
Public safety has to be the top priority of all the money. The public safety in the court system is going to keep going regardless of anything else. We've got to protect our citizens. And morale is low, but it's low in other departments in the county, not just the Sheriff's Department. But, in a bad economy, crime seems to be worse than it is in a good economy. And that's probably because these low-paying jobs that we've got, we keep going back to jobs, but if our citizens had great-paying jobs, I think we would have less crime. So if we can it still goes back to jobs, and great-paying jobs is what we need. But as far as public safety goes, we've got to fund our Sheriff's Department, and I know that's why it would be very, very irresponsible to sign a pledge saying no new taxes, because we don't know what the future holds. That's the last resort, but we're going to fund the court system and the Sheriff's Department, and they'll always come first, and it's under the Commissioner's budget to do that, and it's just something that we'll have to do.
Candidate Abernathy.
A $22 million budget may increase, but you may have to reduce somewhere else. As we were just talking about, public safety and welfare of the people has got to be the number one priority. I think that in my own heart, I've come over the last few months of walking and talking, and that jobs are not the number one priority. The welfare of the people in Bartow County is the number one priority. And jobs work out of that priority. Because we want to take care of the people, the safety of our children sitting here in this room today, welfare of the people of Bartow County is the number one priority. And then because we have the people at heart, we want jobs and we want safety. And we'll work together. We'll organize groups in our own to help the sheriff, to work with the sheriff, to work with the deputies. And we need to have number one priority to be the welfare of this county. And just like Steve said, all the funding is going to go to one place. We're going to protect Bartow County and the residents of Bartow County. And I don't think any commissioner that would be going in, I think number one priority has got to be the welfare of the people within that county. That is the utmost responsibility of the commissioner.
Candidate Lewis.
Yes, thank you. How highly will I prioritize public safety? Very high. I think that is what the government is here for and what it started out for. It started out as the Commissioner of Roads and Revenue, and the Sheriff Department, the deputies, was a part of that. I remember as a child when Wayne Self served as County Commissioner, he was only in office for one term, 4 years, because he was a visionary, like I consider myself. He was the idea man. Do you know that he is the one that put the fire service into place? Before then, it was volunteer fire service. I am blessed enough to have James Bailey as vice chairman of my committee to elect Tracy Lewis as county commissioner. And he so lets me know all the time how Wayne Self was the visionary and got the firemen there. So public safety with our deputies and with our firemen, I mean, when you need help, who do you want? You want one of those. Firemen and policemen are the true public servants of our community. Yes, we want to serve. I want to serve you as county commissioner, as the leader and the visionary, but they are the true public servants along with our military. So yes, it would be a very high priority of mine. Public safety has got to be in place, and it is about half of our budget now, our county budget now, is contributed to public safety, sheriff, fire, and EMS. So very high priority.
Thank you. Right, this next question is going to seem like tilling up some old ground, but it's interesting that we, the three of us on the panel here, came up with these questions independently, asking input from those in our community. And so you can tell by this next question where the priority is of the community is and what they want asked. As we sit here tonight, votes are being counted in Wisconsin to determine the fate of Republican Governor Scott Walker, who damaged the ability of the labor unions to vote themselves lavish pay and benefits. However, Governor Walker managed to eliminate a $3.6 billion deficit by implementing conservative, fiscally responsible policies, which did not require tax increases, massive layoffs, or shutting down government services. Our county school board has proposed a tax increase on the people of Bartow County to make up for a reported budget shortfall, stating that there's nothing left to cut. As commissioner, what specific steps would you take to streamline spending to avoid such tax increases? And we will start with Mr. Tidwell.
I think basically that question's been answered numerous times already. I mean, all we can do is get in there and look to see what we can do. Either cut services, I mean, as most of us said, that raising taxes be one of the very last things you'd want to go with. That'd be only if that's what the people want to keep those services up. But like I say, I think that's what we're all talking about tonight. Finding ways we can either increase the income or the tax revenue, or cut out some of the things in the budget that's not really necessary at this time anyway. It might be more of a suspension of some services for the next year or two, if that's what it takes, until we can get some of this industry on board. Everybody's talked about Lake Point. You know, I hate to count the chickens before the eggs are hatched. It sounds good. Now they've moved the date back to 2014. If it does come in like proposed, I think we're going to be in an excellent position where people will be coming in, spending tax dollars, and going back home. I found something pretty interesting in one of the economic development magazine that they put out here. And they say that every day tourists spend $344,191 in Bartow County. That contributes $6,884 to the SPOS fund daily and $34.41 local sales tax. So if we get that out, it's just going to increase this, you know, I don't know how many fold, but you can imagine what it'll do if we can get that in. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Of course, as commissioner, you would have to be fiscally responsible. And before you can actually say what you can cut, what else you can cut that hasn't been cut now. And I'll have to give Commissioner Brown a little credit here. He has, like I said before, he's went from 900 employees to 700 employees. We're going to start cutting services You can't sugarcoat this thing and say we're going to cut 100 more jobs and trim the fat. We will cut services if that's what the people want. I got a feeling when the services that gets cut, if it affects individual people, they're the ones that wouldn't want to cut. For instance, the senior centers. If we just say we're going to cut those out, then the seniors wouldn't like it. Or if we cut recreation, then the parents of the youth that's using the parks wouldn't like it. But I've looked at this, and there may be a few more cuts in there, but it's pretty tough. And they've gone a long way, but you will have to be fiscally responsible. You'll have to look through every line item and see what's available to cut. But just to right off the bat to think of something, and I'll be honest with you, I can't see it right now, but it's sitting in the commissioner's seat. If it takes it, it'll get cut. You'll have to provide for public safety and the court system. You have to provide emergency services, the fire protection. Those things
Thank you, Candidate
have to be
Taylor.
provided
We're out of
for.
time.
Thank you.
Mr. Abernathy.
Talking about smaller government, we're talking about taking it, we're talking about reducing it. We're all gonna have to be accountable. In Bartow County, we got a budget of $157,143,423 for Bartow schools. That's 21 Bartow County schools. Got 968 teachers we're talking about. They're already on furloughs. They've already been cut back about as far as we can cut those teachers. And they're working for nothing many days of the year now. I sat with a teacher today and asked her if there was any fat that she knew of in there that we could cut. I know that they've got so many ways that they're looking at. The city of Carterville just replaced the parapros with temp services to reduce the fees they were paying. There's ways you can cut some more. And I think before you jump on a 1.5 mil tax, which we may have to do, there's nobody here in Bartow County that may not be able to avoid that. That's $60 for every $100,000 that we're going to have in the county. And if you got a $100,000 home, it's going to go up $60. I'm pro-education. I want our education system to continue to be the best it can be. But we need to look at a line item budget. We need to whack away at that thing, and we need to cut her to the core before we ever come back and say, let's increase taxes. Because it's going to get to the point where the people in Bartow County, the jobs are down, everything's down. Here we got T-Splosh, we got school tax, all this is going to go to polls on, and right here at the same time practically. And we better strip
Thank
this
you,
budget.
Candidate Abernathy. You're out of time.
Ms. Lewis?
Thank you, Louis. Being fiscally conservative is exactly what I've had to be with my business for 24 years with fast track delivery and warehouse. And to make it through this great recession, which hopefully we're through with, but the past 4 years have been tough. So I've had to cut. You can't spend what you don't have. So you have to cut. And that is the first thing as a Republican. You want to cut spending instead of raise taxes. And I just revamped my website over the weekend. It's www.tracy4bartow.com. And I have what I call my Tracy's First 90 Days Solutions. And the second thing out of 5 lists that you can see there is to personally meet with each county department head to find solutions to trim waste. Yes, I believe that we have had good leadership and they have trimmed, but I think that we can do more. I think that if I challenge each department head, once I look and dive into the details of their budget and challenge them to cut it a certain percentage, whether it be 5%, 2%, 8%, whatever it is, I think they can find those ways, and then we can use that money elsewhere, like maybe employees getting off furloughs if they so desire. And an example of somewhere where I have done this before is I'm on the Chattahoochee Technical College Board and vice chair of the Finance and Operations. We were told a few years ago to cut the budget by the governor 9%. We did that without losing a single faculty member or staff, and we cut the budget 9%. And so it can be done, but it's going to be difficult.
Mr. Beard?
Now, here's now all agree, except for one, that jobs is the #1 issue here. And we further all agree that next year is going to be a tough, tough road to hoe for any one of us when we're in there. So in my view, the #1 issue in the campaign is who has the most experience to handle that tough year and lead your county through these weeds. Since day one, I've had the following 6-point plan. I've not changed my website, I've not changed the program, I've stayed true to why I'm running. But what we've got to do is a full service scope review. We've got to have a full bore assessment of each department head, their capabilities, and whether or not they're capable of moving forward with us to the future of the promise that Bartow County deserves. Then we need to go through a fully managed zero-based budget exercise that's not just a few months exercise. After that, or parallel with that, we'll have a full arm's length review of the tax digest from bottom to top. Then we do the hard decisions of what is our county's government's needs, what should it be doing during these tough times, how will we get through this still financially strong like we are now. And during that time, once we find out what the problems are, where the weaknesses are, we'll hire an administrator that will hold us to that plan.
Thank you. Moving along, right after this question, we're going to be taking about a 15-minute intermission. So I know those of you who are listening online and on the radio would need to take a break. And again, I want to thank the media that's here tonight, BartowPolitics.com, Cartersville Uncut, and the Tribune. Also, a special thanks to Rebecca Long for jumping in here at the last minute, taking some pictures. I know Deanna Berry is around here somewhere. She's, I think that camera is attached to her hip. But anyway, she does a great job. We appreciate what everybody does. Moving along to the next question, candidates. In the last debate and tonight, all of you have said if you were elected, your #1 priority would be jobs. With that being said, currently the city of Cartersville has a 20% Freeport rate, while the county has an 80% rate. How can the city and county jointly work together on manufacturing and industrial development with this type of gap, especially with the Cartersville-Bartow County Joint Development Authority project at Cass White Road? And after you have answered this, I do have a follow-up question to ask you. And we're going to start with candidate Taylor.
Actually, I think the city has already dropped their rate 20% more. I think they may be at 60 instead of 20. But that being said, as commissioner, I would plan on dropping the rate on the county side to full 100%. No inventory tax. We've lost a couple of pretty good industries recently, one real big one here in the past year, because we did have some Freeport. The actual site in the industrial park that this company was looking at was on the city side, I believe. So they actually left here and went to a neighboring community. But that being said, you've got repercussions from being 100%. You've got to work it out with your school board. You've got to work with them and tell them jobs or more, or maybe jobs would bring future revenue coming in would far outweigh the inventory tax that's now in place. So that's just, to me, that would be a no-brainer. We've got to compete with all the communities up and down I-75, and in the past, some of these industries have gave us a token look, and they could go to other communities that was 100%. And that's a goal of mine as commissioner, is to be fully inventory tax or Freeport. I would fully implement that if I was commissioner.
Thank you, candidate Taylor. Before we move to candidate Abernathy, I want to make a point. When I was on the city council up here in Adairsville, Yanmar, which provides a lot of jobs to Bartow County and is a big industrial manufacturer here in the county, as we all know, threatened to move to Floyd County. And at that time, myself, along with city manager Larry Pratt, went down to Clarence Brown's office, and at that point, the county was at 20%. And we said, Yanmar has already made a commitment to move to Floyd County, and the main reason, the #1 reason, was because of Freeport. At that point, Clarence Brown saw the need to raise the Freeport up, and he tiered it 20% over, I believe, 3 years, and capped it at 80. So I wanted to let everybody out here know, and is listening to us, the significance of Freeport and the competitiveness it puts Bartow against the other surrounding counties. With that being said, we'll move along to candidate Abernathy. Thank you.
Freeport tax just cost us a Lowe's job, and it went to Floyd County. We all know that, especially these folks here at Adairsville. And we need to reduce that. And I think everybody's aware that jobs are the #1 priority as far as getting them in. And like we were talking about, the indirect money that's made off of the jobs was gonna more than cover these Freeport taxes. We've got to reduce this, and whoever is the commissioner is gonna have to address this, because we cannot afford to have manufactured inventory sitting there at the end of the year and somebody being burned up by it. And no matter what that product is that's been made here in Bartow County.
Thank you, candidate Lewis.
Freeport tax exemption is a no-brainer. It is a part of my Tracy's first 90 days solutions. It is to make the Freeport inventory tax on industries 100% exempt instead of 80%. It will energize economic development opportunities and help existing industries. In my involvement in the chamber back in the mid-90s with Phil Bridges, we pushed for this, for Clarence Brown to put this on the ballot or give us a chance to vote on it or to do it. He did it at 20% increments, and now with the recession, we've been stuck at 80. It has got to go to 100%. So it is something that I will do in the first 90 days. I've dove into the research with the tax assessors, how it affects the maintenance and operations budget of Bartow County, which is a $62 million budget or so, is around $250,000. So that's peanuts. I think in the first week we could find ways to cut that. Now, how it affects the school systems with 120 plus million, it's about 500,000. So you're comparing apples to apples here. And if the school systems cannot live without that now, I have ideas. We can get public-private partnerships. We could get these industries that are used to paying that whatever they're used to paying at $750,000, split that up. If the county cuts it 25%, the school still needs it. Maybe they could sponsor a Cass High School and help with that, the money needed there, until the school systems can do without it. But it's got to be at 100%, and I will do that in the first 90 days in office.
Thank you, candidate Beard.
No doubt, Freeport has to be 100%. Years ago, when I was that advisor, it was my job to put very complex analysis together that allowed Fortune 500 companies to decide where to go. It wasn't my job in the early stages of those negotiations to decide where those plants were going. It was my job to eliminate counties. Anytime there's a county with a Freeport less than 100%, it's off the list. It's gone. Non-competitive. Doesn't get considered at all. When you get down to the short stages of deciding where those jobs go, that's when it really gets competitive. I don't want us to compete up and down I-75. I want us to compete with Texas. I want us to compete with Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. I want us to compete with Jacksonville, Florida. But right now, I want us to compete with Ohio and Michigan, where there are jobs looking to move south. There's not a place better for them to be than Bartow County. The industrial park just up the road here, the Cass White Industrial Park, are part of this overall equation that gives us the best story that I told all over this country. And Freeport is just one of those little items that gets in the way. We've got it all together. We need to make sure that the Board of Education understands how competitive it is. We need to make sure that the City of Carterville is on board. We'll have a very aggressive effort if that is done. And if I'm Commissioner, it will be done.
Thank you, candidate Tidwell.
I know the commissioner has been very concerned about this and had already planned on implementing so we'd have the 100% Freeport. And they've been in discussion with the schools. And like we've already stated before, we are running on a tight budget, so is the school board. How long is it going to take to get a company in if we had 100% Freeport? Now, true, the company we just lost to Floyd County, I understand that's why we lost them. Even though we were like 7 miles closer to Interstate 75 than the company, where they set their company at. It's another thing to be looking at. There's been several suggestions on how we can overcome this difference, but it's going to take the working coordination between the school board and the county and the cities to be able to do this.
Thank you. Just kind of a follow-up on this. If I'm understanding this right, candidate Taylor, Lewis, and Beard all said that y'all are for 100%. And all the surrounding counties around Bartow, every county that connects to us has 100% Freeport. And just to give you an idea of what Yanmar was facing when they were here at 20% Freeport, they were paying $1.4 million a year in extra taxes. That incentive is what was making them want to move to Floyd. And with that being said, the three candidates I just mentioned, I believe had already said y'all were for raising it to 100%. Are all of y'all in agreement that we, in order for Bartow to be competitive with manufacturing, that we need to raise it to 100?
Yeah, I agree, it needs to be,
Okay.
work it out.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, we are going to take a